to IEP Radio, a show dedicated to the education of all things indoor environmental quality related. And now here's your host, Michael Schrantz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to IEP Radio. This is episode 18. Today, we're going to be talking with IQAir, and specifically, Glory Dolphin-Hammes, the CEO of IQAir. I'm really looking forward to this podcast today. It's a passionate topic of mine. We deal in the world of indoor air quality, as you know, and the topic of filtration comes up on a daily basis. And I wanted to dive into the data, the research, with a company that offers this technology beyond the marketing, beyond the website. We get all that. It's hard to appreciate who's telling the truth, who's just marketing certain aspects to get you to purchase a piece of equipment. I have an issue with that, and I wanted to be able to give IQAir an opportunity to shine and show us what they're doing in the background and why their products are delivering the types of efficiencies that they are claiming. And I would like to say that during my interview today with Glory, that's exactly what she did. She knocked it out of the park. I hope you find that to be the case. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Glory.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you on the show. I know we spent a little bit of time talking here before we went live. Such wonderful things I want to cover with our audience today regarding IQAir. I want to get into a little bit about you and the company just to start this conversation off. But before I did that, I wanted just to tell the audience, reason for this interview today was I work with a lot of clients around the globe where we inevitably get into the topic of air filtration. And whether it's a whole house system or it's a portable system, some of the big names that come up always usually include IQAir. And I'm a big fan of air filtration, so we'll just set the tone off the right way. But it's always about the data and the science for me. And I thought, what better way to do that than talk to the CEO of the company and get into the data that you guys have done, the research, so that people who are interested or curious about your products can understand that there really was and is a lot behind the scenes that is occurring, that you guys are not just marketing names like Hepa or things like that without kind of doing your due diligence. So that being said, again, a warm welcome to you on the show. And I'd love if you could give our audience maybe a few minutes to describe IQAir, its culture, how you got involved, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks again for having me on the show. IQAir is a family organization. We actually got started in 1963, and our very first product that we introduced was a residential air filter. And yes, technically you're correct in using the term air filtration rather than air purification. And that just goes back, I think, to what has become the most common term. And so we've really tried to make it easier on our customers and trying to use the most common terms that they are used to in calling ourselves or calling our products, some of our products, air purifiers.
Yeah, I get it. It's tricky with the terminology, what people understand.
Right.
The term purification from and I mean this in a good way, a marketing standpoint, is understood, gets in the way sometimes with concerns that they have about units that actually do promote devices that maybe aim to destroy or oxidize and break down. And there's always been concerns about, does this particular line of products do that? People who I work with who are either really chemically sensitive or they're dealing with other sorts of environmental exposures that are really low dose in nature, sometimes are hesitant to buy products that they think may be creating, or they're hesitant to buy these pieces of equipment because they don't know, is it creating some sort of a byproduct or an intermediate? Is it going to get off gas something? And what I love about your equipment is it doesn't appear that's the case.
Yes, we have a real strong commitment to have the highest standards when it comes to customer safety. So although it is really an area that is not regulated, consumer air purification that much, you can have different products like UV, PCO, and in certain states, not in the state of California anymore, but in other states, you can still have ozonators that generate ozone and try to clean the air really with ozone, which is really, in our opinion, and probably on the side of science, not the right way to go. And so although it's not something that's regulated in a lot of states, we do want to put our best foot forward and do what's best for the customer, and that is using the safest form of technology. And by filtering out particulates, filtering out chemicals from the air and trapping them, rather than going to other forms of technology that include chemical byproducts.
Certainly something that I can support. It's not that there might not be a technology out there that is purification in nature in terms of this idea to break down or destroy. I think there's just a lot more questions about some of the adverse effects. And I don't claim that I would know all that. It's just when we look at chemistry and how you can strip molecules and things down, you start to just, it just goes back to what we were talking about offline before, where, you know, when you're dealing with somebody with a chronic illness, usually their life is not described in an equation that's 3 variables long, X plus Y equals Z. It's usually X plus 99 other variables equals their life. And it ends up being this issue of, well, let's remove as many of the unknowns. And there are companies that are out there that I think are doing good things. They are doing the research like you guys have with quote unquote purification technology. And I think that there are actual avenues where that technology actually may be a better fit. Maybe it's a budget issue. Maybe it's a room issue. Maybe there's some unknown. It's a Hail Mary pass. But at any rate, I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think there's companies that represent all of that. What I love about IQAir is it's really more my wheelhouse of comfort and knowledge. I deal with people who they have the ability to run filtration equipment in their home. They feel comfortable doing it, and we just don't hear the negative complaints symptomatically. So that being said, and I know I've been talking a lot about chemicals, maybe that's where we'll start today. Is earlier we were talking about your multi-gas unit. So there's a big thing about you guys are really promoting the term hyper Hepa. And I understand that the GC does more than that, but can you really, just for the audience sake, kind of talk about what that word hyper Hepa, people usually know what HEPA means, but what is hyper Hepa?
Right. Hyper Hepa, of course, it's one of our marks, but it really, I believe, accurately describes sort of HEPA sort of on steroids, in the sense that HEPA is a term that's basically unregulated, and when people hear about HEPA, they're talking usually about 0.3 microns and achieving 99.97% efficiency, but actually it's pretty much so unregulated today. And so companies won't get into trouble at all for misusing that term. So we try to really take HEPA to another level, and what we've done is we've been able to achieve a standard in terms of hyper Hepa that's not just about 0.3 microns, but it's about the smallest particles. What is IQAir's ability with different products to filter the absolute smallest particle, and to filter out basically in terms of what's called worst case scenario. Right. Also in terms of MPPS, basically. And MPPS stands for most penetrating particle size. So when you have a test like EN 1822, that really is a background for our hyper Hepa, it looks at what is the worst case scenario for this filter in terms of any size particle. Because when it comes to mechanical filtration, there is a bell-shaped curve in terms of the worst case scenario. This bell-shaped curve, the point of the bell-shaped curve is, of course, most penetrating particle size. And it's different for every different type of filter media. So every particular media has its own most penetrating particle size, whether or not that's 0.01 microns or 0.4 microns. It's different, and every filter needs to get tested so that it is very clear what that particular micron size is for most penetrating particle size.
And so let me catch the audience up, because there's a lot of good pearls that you just threw out at the audience. We're going to get into the GC unit itself and how IQAir uses different filters and technologies that way, depending on the product line and what the client is looking for. But what you're seeing right now on the screen, if you're watching, is that curve that Glory was talking about. And
Yes.
I know when we say in plain English, it's still relative to the topic of particle removal and all that, so bear with us. But what you're seeing is that there's this general model, and again, Glory did a great job of explaining that it's not even as regulated as it should be, where people think about Hepa being somewhat defined at 0.3 microns. This is a particle size and being at 99.97% efficient. And there's a lot of gray area in those numbers. Well, what kind of media were they using to establish that? Is that even accurate? Then you get into other issues of which we'll talk about in a little bit down the road, Glory, but about how these filters are actually tested versus, are they testing in the units themselves to give you real measurements versus something in a laboratory chamber that wasn't really reflective of the total product that you're giving them. Yeah, the filter may do great, but there's leaks around the filter media.
Exactly.
That's an issue. So we'll get to that in a moment. This curve that Glory's showing is, they're showing that at about 0.19 microns, even this H11, which is a European grading system of filter, is still doing, better than 95% efficiency removal of this particulate through a first pass. And that's worst case. Now we understand that the heavier particles get, of course, these are still relatively small at 1 micron, that eventually they're just going to settle out. And unless there's laminar flow across the room, you're not going to suck that larger particle into the unit. But within its capture zone for larger particles, you can absolutely bet this unit's going to do a great job. And the other point is the other side of the curve, where we have lighter particles that through different forces, including Brownian motion, there it is, can make their way and attach. In fact, the smaller the particle is, ironically, usually the better the efficient the particle can get to or can be removed from the air, as this curve indicates. Now, I'm sure somewhere along the way, maybe the curve goes the other direction. But for those listening, keep in mind, we're talking about really, really small particles that actually diffuse in the air like smoke, that would be more able to be removed. And we can see this. We can document this with particle counters and things of that nature. We know it works. I actually have an IQAir Health Pro Plus in my son's room where I've used a particle counter. And you turn that thing on, and even though it's looking at 0.3 microns as the smallest size, within minutes, you see that particle size drop. And yeah, it's the poor man's experiment, but it's really nice to see how effective it was at reducing those particle levels, especially given the surroundings and the fact that we live in a desert and it's pretty dusty and things of that nature. So question here to you, Glory, for the audience is, when we're talking about the GC unit, this is the multi-gas unit. These are for people who typically have a chemical sensitivity. They have a focus, but you're still offering, as this independent study shows, really great filtration, certainly better than a standard, MERV 8, MERV 11 filter.
Absolutely.
But you really are focusing on the chemical removal. Now, I know that we didn't have time to get some independent studies into the audience. I'll be sure to try and post that on the video down stream when we get it from IQAir. But maybe, Glory, explain what we're seeing here. There's a lot of different, if I can unhighlight it, there's a lot of different media that you guys are using in the cartridge. Why are you using all these different absorbers? What's going on here?
Well, yeah, there's different types of chemicals in the air, of course, and every different type of chemical actually needs to have a certain chemical catalyst in order to make that chemical reaction take place. That chemical reaction, actually, it's called absorption, and it allows this chemical to get trapped within that media, that gas phase media. And so in terms of chemistry, you will actually need a catalyst. This catalyst helps to create this chemical reaction so that that particular chemical gets trapped and is removed from the air in the absorbent gas phase media.
And what we see here, this is the part where you correct me if I'm wrong. You're seeing different types of absorbents that are available in that filter media of the multi-gas, because there's different things floating around of different weights and sizes. And if you just had one type of, let's say you just had the activated carbon that you mentioned there at the top, that may be good for a certain spectrum of chemicals, but you may miss the stuff to the left and the right of it.
That's correct. That's correct. And although we have good filtration in the VOC, there are certain parts of the country that are a little bit more humid. And in that particular case where it's more humid, you would want to have a chemical media, the chemisorber, which will actually help to offset the humidity, because relative humidity actually in some cases can decrease the likelihood of a chemical reaction. And so that's why every environment is different, and we need to know what environment we're working in so that we can best trap these
chemicals. Trying to create that contrast between the environment and what you're trying to achieve, and seems like chemisorber that help kind of regulate that moisture in the air is one way you guys are achieving it. I didn't even think about that until you said that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So again, there's really a strong focus with the multi-gas to remove chemicals. I can assure you to the audience that not all chemicals are free floating. Some of them will be attached to a particle, and those are going to be removed as well. So you're kind of, I don't like the expression killing two birds with one stone, but you're really doing there's a lot of synergy going on in the unit, or call it layers of protection for you, if you will, to last lines of defenses for things to have to go through before it would make it through. And I think that IQAir is modeling that quite well with the GC unit. A big popular unit, of course, and we'll step away from some of these studies. I want to get back into them in a moment, but is the Health Pro Plus series. Like I said, I have one of those in my son's room. I'm going to navigate your website, fairly easy to get to. And this one, it's a little bit different in how you guys set it up. I'll let you do the talking since you work for the company, but maybe walk them through the pre-filter, why it's a little bit different in terms of its rating system than, say, the one in the GC, the V5 cell. Love to get some information on that. And then finally, the Hepa, the hyper filter in there.
Absolutely. So there's actually a 4-stage filtration, because in the Health Pro Plus, the pre-filter is the very first phase that the air actually goes through. And so that filter it's a European filter. It's an F8 filter, and it filters out all of the coarse dust that's in the air. So it does an amazing job, and actually filters out most of I believe about 90%, if you're looking at particulate weight of what's actually in the air. So it does a really good job with that. And the reason why we have to put in that high level of pre-filter is because otherwise, if you have something like the V5 cell, filters, a pre-filter helps that in the sense that particulates will clog up the micropores of the activated carbon or the potassium permanganate. And that means that your filter is going to last a whole lot less time-wise, because it's been filled up with particulates. And that's pretty expensive media that you don't want to have just filled up with particulates.
Yeah,
so
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, so that's really the reasoning behind that. Then lastly, you have the stage of the hyper Hepa filter, and that's actually an H12, H13 filter, and it's able to really take out all of what's called UFPs, so the ultrafine particles that are in the air, to a very, very high level. And I believe this is a H12, H13, which is rated at 99.5% efficiency at the smallest particle sizes.
Which again, your guys' particle sizes are more closer to like 0.19, 0.2 microns versus what may be more of I don't even want to use a standard model, but a more understood of 0.3 microns. So it's really doing a great job at even smaller particle ranges. And when you even get to 0.3, just for comparison purposes, you guys are even higher. In fact, you start to creep up into the H14 category if you follow the curve long enough.
That's correct.
Which is incredible. I mean, these are super clean room type ratings, which you wouldn't normally find in a portable air system for a residential setting.
Yes, that's correct. And really what's special about that is when we test our air purifiers, we do test our components, but more importantly, the final numbers that we give our customers are what's called total system efficiency numbers.
Please knock this one out of the park, because I think a lot of companies don't do this. Listen up. This is a good part to the audience.
Absolutely. So what's important is not really the component specification. What's important is what our customers actually breathe. So when it comes down to it, the air that's coming out of the air purifier, the air that's being circulated within the room, is the most important thing. For us, it's the most important thing for our customers. So when we look at our specifications, our ratings, that is really what we focus on. We focus on total system efficiency, and we don't focus on the component specifications, because what's really important is the quality of the air that people are breathing from our systems.
And these units are being built by human beings. I mean, certainly there's other manufacturing processes, but it's to imply that they're not going to be perfect, but you guys go, again, out of your way to deal with things like bypass. I mean, you might have a filter that performs pretty well. I know that's relative, but if you stick it in a device that's not sealed appropriately,
Right.
you will get bypass, and you won't get what they're stating you're getting in their marketing literature. Here on the site right now, you guys talk about 3D Ultra Seal. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, 3D Ultra Seal is actually, it's a patented technology that allows us to use a three-dimensional seal. Usually you've got like a two-dimensional seal that's within an air filtration or air purification system, and that's not sometimes the best route to go, because it's allows bypass to take place. Bypass meaning that air is actually bypassing the filter or bypassing the purification that's taking place, and is able to go around that. Now, of course, air will always seek to go through the path of least resistance. And so when you have two-dimensional seals, when you have spaces or gaps within the air purification system itself, bypass will occur. There's also something that occurs in the design of certain types of air purification systems, and that's called shortcutting. Shortcutting is when the input for an air purifier is too close to the output for the air purifier. And so that means that clean air is constantly being recirculated, and it's circulated through the air purifier and not throughout the room. So what we do for our system designs is that we put the input as far away from the output as possible, so that shortcutting doesn't occur.
Right. Again, it almost seems like no stone left unturned, which is, I think, just reflected even in my own experiences. Let's jump back into some of the research that you guys took the time to send to us. We won't have to go too deep. We're covering so much of the main pearls here. You guys have other products online. The Atom, the IQAir Atom is one of them. I have a friend who uses one. In fact, I visited his house about a month and a half ago, and he had one there staring at me, kind of set the thing up to where it was kind of blowing right in my face from a little bit of a distance, kind of getting that laminar flow effect.
Yes.
But independent study yet again from this company. This company, where are they based out of? Do you know that? Is that a fair question?
It's a European company.
All right. So you guys are shipping your devices, and they're finished, the whole product, not just the filter. And they're testing them. Of course, we see this study was done in December of 2017, following the 2009 European standard for it. And I'm trying to save some of the suspense, but what we are seeing is an H13 rating, which to kind of put that in some plain English here as I'm staging my screen here, is very high. It's the lowest particle. I forgot what the MPPS was here, 0.0, maybe 8. I'm judging by this number here. I guess I can, oh, there it is, 0.07. But that being said, look how sharp it goes up. I mean, you're already over 99.97% efficient at that particle range. And when some people think about 0.3, which I've cleverly marked over here, you're already getting into like an H14 rating, which is far above the layman's claim of 0.3 microns, 99.97% efficient. I mean, just incredible particle removal, and relying on not just the filter itself, but taking advantage of the known physics of how particles behave to get you that efficiency on the backside of the curve. I mean, this is incredible.
It's pretty impressive when I actually think about it. But again, if we were to look at the Hepa standard, it doesn't tell all of the story. So 0.3 microns really isn't, for most Hepa filters today, is not MPPS.
Right, get it. And nobody really, certainly in the layman, would know that.
Right.
I just assumed that the industry was being honest, and that was the most penetrating particle size. You hear it's the one that behaves the worst at 0.3 microns, but it was relative to the media that they were using, what the filter was made of. And if you don't know what it's made of, that may not be the worst behaving particle size. It may be something smaller, as indicated here in your guys' studies.
Right. Actually, this information is about, I think, a little bit more than 30 years old. So scientists did discover about 30 years ago that MPPS was not at 0.3 microns, and hence that's why we've got EN 1822. That's why we have other ISO standards that focus on finding MPPS, but we haven't yet caught up in the United States yet. So I
think that's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. We move a little bit slower because we work through consensus, and we've got to definitely, as a European company, stay very much so research focused and research oriented. So we really do focus on the latest research.
Your research continues on. We've been jumping around on the different units, covering the multi-gas, which has its chemical removal features. And again, we talked a little bit about the different type of adsorbents, and we'll try and post any independent studies when we get the opportunity to the audience later on the website, so you can get access to that. We've talked about now the atom. There's different models, right? And there's different sizes. You want to talk a moment about that and why someone would choose one or the other?
Well, it really depends on what particular types of air pollutants you're concerned about. And so we have different types of systems that focus on different types of air pollutants. We also have different types of systems that focus on the car, that may focus on the desk if you're at a cubicle and you want to have clean air within just your office for yourself personally. We've got the Autumn series for that. Right now, I think we're looking at the Autumn Car Air Purifier, which allows people to have the cleanest air really within their automobile, which is great. And that combines with a 5-in-1. So if you want it in your car, if you want it on your desk, if you want to even take that with you and travel with your air purifier and have it on your hotel nightstand, that's also available in the Autumn 5-in-1 series.
So am I understanding correct that it is similar or the same technology between these two, the desk and the car? It's just a capacity. One's going to move more air, more filter more. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's different types of filters in the car, Autumn car. It does actually have, in addition to particulate filtration, has gas phase filtration.
Oh, interesting. So you actually add that part in the car model.
Yes, because we feel that if you're inside the car, if you're in a major metropolitan area, that's something that you definitely can benefit from.
And again, it's all about an adsorbent. You're not using some sort of purification technology to manipulate or create PCOs or ozone or things of that nature. That's not what you guys are promoting. It's really physical removal, ultimately,
Yes,
from the environment.
absolutely. We really truly believe in using safe technology. And we know that a lot of consumers that look at air purifiers, they're actually looking at air purifiers because they're sick. And
Right.
they may have allergies, they may have asthma, or they may even have something even worse. And what we want to do is we want to always make sure that we are not adding anything to the air that could possibly harm our customers. We always want to make sure that we're conservative and on the safe side and removing air pollutants and never adding air pollutants to the air.
For the audience, there's more research they did send us. We won't spend too much time on it because I think Glory did a great job explaining earlier about the Health Pro Plus and what's available. But the takeaway here is we do have independent studies showing efficiency of these filters that they're using. This Hyper Hepa, the one that I have in my son's room right now, really going above and beyond, and again being tested in real life scenarios, meaning in the unit themselves, not just a filter component testing, as you'd mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
I'm really impressed and really, I guess the word is comfortable supporting this technology to our audience, because I think that's what matters. Everyone's always a little bit scared in my past experience of sharing their data. I don't even mean for proprietary reasons. That's different. I mean, because no one here is trying to solve world peace. We understand that if you are somebody who is listening and you have a chronic illness, buying one of these units may not make you better. It's not going to pay your taxes. But we understand in the indoor air quality community that the idea of removing contaminants from the environment is traditionally considered to be a good thing. Now, we're not trying to create a literal clean room for you, but we would like to lower that stress that your body is experiencing, especially in some of the more contaminated countries. I mean, we got a lot of things maybe not right in the U.S., but we got a lot of things good in terms of pollution compared to other countries out there. And so, anyways, these are a great unit to consider purchasing, which will segue. Actually, I want to talk about one more product line, if you could bear with me, and that's the Perfect 16. These devices that we've been talking about thus far have really been modeled on portable pieces that you can take with you.
Yes.
There are homeowners, I've worked with them before, that have a Perfect 16. Maybe talk a little bit about the Perfect 16 and why you guys have it designed in the box that you do, what the claim to fame is in terms of particle removal.
Right. Well, we're really trying to achieve the highest level of filtration that you can have within your system, within an HVAC system. An HVAC system is really limited in terms of pressure drop. So we want to see how can we create a nearly HEPA system without the pressure drop. And so that's really what the thinking, that's what comes behind the Perfect 16, is we actually needed to create a additional what's called surface area, so that we had to add on more surface area so that we could really truly achieve high level filtration with an extremely low pressure drop. Our pressure drop is so low, actually our Perfect 16 lasts up to 3 years without being changed. And yes, yes,
I didn't know that.
it's pretty amazing. So if you have 50% what's called duty cycle, our Perfect 16 filters will last about 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's great because a lot of consumers don't like to change their filters.
What a
And we
colorful way
know
of
that.
saying that. I think that's reality, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not as good as we should be, and I would include myself in that.
Yeah, yeah. I think technically when you read the manufacturer's labels, the standard 1-inch filter needs to be changed once a month. But let's be honest, how many of us actually change that filter once a month?
Yeah. Don't raise your hand. She'll see you. It's true.
So
It
I
happens to all
have
of
the
us.
perfect 16, so it's every 3 years for me.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. But having that forgiveness factor with the amount of surface area that you guys create in this box, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be for everybody. There's going to be places that their furnace or air handler is located in a closet with the minimal amount of space. Certainly not big enough. But
Yeah.
for those of you who have this option, this is why it's here for you. And the argument could be made is that it's all about trying to. It's like an economies of scale. You're trying to filter out the most, and you have a distribution system, aka your forced air conditioning system with ductwork that can distribute this filtered air through the house, certainly more efficient than a portable Health Pro Plus. Now, that's not to say that the Health Pro Plus doesn't have the benefit of removing smaller particles. In my case, I have my own version. I don't have the room for a Perfect 16, but I would absolutely do it if I had the room. What I have is what would be equivalent to maybe in the European numbers, an E9 or a, MERV 12 or something filter. But then I complement that with a portable filtration unit, knowing that they can work in harmony together to ultimately lower those particle counts. So if you're somebody out there who has a whole house system, is looking to upgrade for chronic improvement, long-term improvement of the air, Perfect 16 is a way to get around the hurdle of resistance. You will hear this almost every time you deal with an air conditioning company who is afraid to install a higher rated filter because they're afraid, and legitimately so, that your air conditioning system or your furnace will not be able to operate because the air can't move fast enough through this resistant filter and cause your system to fail in a number of ways. That's one of the things that IQAir worked on in this design to avoid, was create enough surface area to where you really can get away with a lot, including apparently with 50% usage up to 3 years.
Yes.
Without having to change these things. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good. The other thing is that we're coming out with other systems. We have a couple more systems that will be coming out in 2020 that are a little bit more flexible. So we might have something even for your particular HVAC system.
Well, thanks for teasing us.
Yeah.
Kind of getting ready to wrap up right now. It's been so great with the information, the data that you guys were willing to share. Thank you for that. Question is, if people are listening and they want to get help, they want to have questions, they maybe not even be ready to buy a unit, but they just want to feel like there's a comfortable place they can go to. What do you recommend?
Oh, well, we actually have a Help Me Choose on our website. So it actually
Guide me through this. Is that on the support thing, or where do I go here?
Well, let me see. If you go back to the home page, I think
we'll do that.
Yeah. And if you just scroll down a little bit, there's actually a sort of, okay. I'm not sure if you're on the US website.
Oh, that's a good point.
Okay. Sorry about that. If you just go on the globe there.
Yeah, sure. Let's
do
do
the
it.
right. And then if you just click down to the US website.
You want me to click?
Just click on that globe.
Oh, click on it. Got it. Well, it doesn't allow me to click, but it says select your country.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, let's do it.
And you can select the US.
Okay. There it is, right in front of my face.
No worries.
Okay.
So if you just scroll down, there's something that'll ask you if you want, Help Me Choose, basically.
There it is. Okay.
And essentially, if you go through that Help Me Choose, it will kind of do the selection for you. So
okay, I see.
Yeah.
So people who are having more, this kind of gets semi-specific.
Very much so.
Got it. And then you see primary, secondary, tertiary concerns, and then that's obviously going to lead to a recommendation of what unit may be best for you in that scenario.
Well, yes. Then it'll ask you what environment you want this for too. After that, so then
okay, got it.
After it asks you those series of questions, then you'll be able to get the recommendation there.
Oh wow, it really gets into depth, does it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is fantastic, Lori. Thank you very much. And then the final question here, and maybe I know the answer, but I don't want to assume. People who are actually interested, ready to purchase equipment, I can go on Google and I can type in IQAir Health Pro Plus, and sometimes I get you guys, sometimes I don't. What is your recommended way for a person to purchase the equipment from you?
if you just go to IQAir.com, that's really the best way to find us. And if you're in the US, IQAir.com/US is the best way to find us.
Got it. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Glory, for the information today. It was wonderful. It's such an honor for you to share the research in the background, some of which is available. Even with the Perfect 16, I was able to find the research that you had done on it. But it's that transparency that I feel a lot of our clients want, they need. We are becoming more and more intelligent, even though sometimes we don't act like it, and we want to know more of the whys. And you guys are doing a great job of explaining the whys and showing why you guys are building a really strong set of products that are working, at least environmentally, we can prove it. And I think there's a strong correlation that this could help improve the indoor air quality for a lot of people in a multitude of situations. So thank you for today. And we look forward to speaking with you maybe in the near future when some of your new products come out.
Okay, thank you so much. And I do have to add that you've asked some of the most in-depth questions that I've ever been asked, actually, on an interview. So I really appreciate your level of knowledge and the level of knowledge that your listeners are on, that you would even ask such detailed, in-depth questions.
Well, thank you. I was sweating bullets. I'm not going to lie to you, because I always want to do the right amount of questions and do the right amount of research, but that's the goal on IEP Radio. It means a lot for you to give us that compliment. Really, it's here just to educate the public, but it's a two-way street, and we're the one way and you're the other, and boy, did you deliver. So thank you again, and we'll look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Thanks.
The content of this show is for informational purposes and represents the sole opinion of the host and its interviewees only. Any reliance on the information provided in this show is done at your own risk. Additional opinions and/or research may change our current view of the topics spoken in this show. We do our best to minimize any inaccuracies presented and make legitimate efforts to back all comments with our own field experience, independent literature, or studies that support the topics discussed. This information should not be used to make conclusive decisions regarding your health or exposure. Ultimately, all questions and/or concerns regarding your health should be addressed by a qualified physician. Additional exposure concerns and/or questions pertaining to the health of your home or building should be addressed by qualified and on-site professionals. Any and all products and services discussed in this show should not be construed as a recommendation, endorsement, or guarantee that their use is appropriate for your situation. In short, we hope this information is of value to you, but please do not act upon it without actual and individual consultation and guidance by professionals who have taken the time and appropriate collection of data to assess your unique situation.